If you're a chess player, you've probably played against the Scandinavian defense before, and in today's video I'm going to give you a full guide on how to play against the Scandinavian defense properly and get a safe position by avoiding tricky lines. Okay, so we get e4, we get the move d5. Here you have a few options, and yeah, you probably heard about the intercontinental ballistic missile, and no, we don't do that in today's video. It is an interesting trap and you can try it out, but it just doesn't work after some time. So, okay, push doesn't really make sense, you're just going to take. And now they have two options here, they're just going to develop the knight, setting pressure over here. I'm going to show you how to play against that too, but first we're just going to go by the move queen takes d5. Okay, we developed the knight attacking the queen at the same time, cannot be a bad move. You're just going bringing pieces towards the center and then maybe towards your opponent way over here, and at the same time attack the queen, and your opponent can't really develop themselves now. That's one of the reasons why the Scandinavian defense is considered not that great, but it's playable, of course. Okay, so here we got a few options. Queen to a5 is very common, queen d8 as well. And then we got these few checks, and obviously some other lines, but those are not as common. Okay, so let's handle the most famous one. So if we ask the Leech's database, most people go here. If you ask me, most people go here. And if you might ask somebody else, he would say most people go here. Let's handle the first one that I showed, it's queen to d8. Okay, so obviously you're just going to play the move d4 over here, and that's why the database recommends it as well. But you could also at the same time just develop the knight. Just remember that if you get pinned over here, you're just going to play h3, and now they have to take, because if they drop back, they're slowly going to get overrun by this. And this is actually borderline winning for white if you ask Stockfish. Okay, by the way, after this you can play here, and this is even worse, because now you're just straight up threatening to mate, and after something like this, you can just push. So, just so you know that, right? My recommendation, just develop the knight over here. They're going to probably develop your knight, as you know, as I said, if they pin you, or develop the bishop to some other square, you're just going to develop. But again, if they pin you, you're just going to play out what I just played. Okay, they develop, you're just going to develop as well, and then play this move d4. It's very important. You could go d3 as well. Most people do play d3 and it's obviously completely playable, but d4 just holds the center better and actually eliminates some of the annoying squares that the enemy pieces might go to, like this. And overall it's just a good move. Just a short idea, if you decide to play d3 and after something like this, you could just go here, and after castles, going here is absolutely annoying. They have to drop back, and now you could even play something like h4. Let's ask Stockfish. Okay, so h4, certainly not a bad move, and that is a more aggressive approach. I don't really ask you to do that necessarily. Okay, let's handle another move, as queen to d8 is just met with simple development. So now we get queen to a5. Now this is a pretty safe place to put the queen on, right? And here I recommend you to play a specific trap that you might have seen or might have not seen before. So you play the move b4. Well, this is just a straight up pawn loss. Okay, this is called the Leonhardt Gambit, and it serves multiple purposes. If you want to play it the normal way, you're just going to play rook to b1, target this file over here, and the bishop is going to have trouble developing, otherwise you're going to infiltrate, and maybe they have to fianchetto as well, which could end up annoying later on. But that's not what this gambit is all about, because after they take, you can also jump the knight over here and attack them. One way to protect it is if they go queen here. And obviously they just put the queen back where it was, and now after the queen goes here and protects the fork, very important, that's the reason we went there. So if they don't defend this pawn with the queen or with the knight like this or with the king, you're just going to simply fork the enemy. So after they protect it, you're just going to develop the bishop. And you might think, okay, what now? They just attack your knight. Interesting move, right? sacrificing the bishop. They take, and you're going to give a check. Well, what happens after they just block the check? Well, the check is now blocked, your queen is hanging, your knight is hanging. But you know what else is hanging? The X-ray queen. You move the knight into a check. They have to take the knight or whatever, move away, and you're just going to take the free queen, and you're going to have a winning position. This is the trap that I was about to show you, but if you don't want to play some of these tricky lines, and or you think that your opponent is good enough, you can just develop your knight. If you get pinned, you're just going to go here, or you can chase it away, but it's not as good as before. So you're just going to go here and just develop normally. The Scandinavian defense is actually not that tricky of a defense. After something like this, I mean, takes doesn't even lose the pawn, so I don't even understand why the opponent would take. But you can ask for him to take after some moves of development. Let's say here, this is a mistake by the way, because after takes you lose the bishop, and that should not be happening, of course. And you also cannot go here, because they take one more piece and then they take the bishop and they're simply up. So that doesn't work. Simply something like bishop d2, rook to e1, h3, everything should be completely fine at this point. But you must keep in mind that they usually want to go here, so after rook to e1, they're just going to go here and completely be annoying, but you're just simply going to be fine. As you can see, the Scandinavian defense is not as tricky, but there is a tricky part to it. So after you develop the knight, well, if you decide to develop the other knight, which I don't recommend, you might run into this check, which can be really annoying, because you can't block like this because you lose the pawn, and after you block they just develop and try to overrun you with the pieces over here. As the queen is really close, you might have to kick the queen out pretty soon, but this variation is not that good. Just develop this knight as I said, and let's cover one more variation. They give a check. Okay, so what now? Well, you're just going to block with the bishop, as the knight will want to go here anyways. If you block with the knight is not as good, because now the bishop is going to have a little trouble developing because you're still pinned. You can't move the knight out of the way and then develop the bishop to some square, so that could be annoying. Just play bishop to e2, and here you're going to see a bunch of developing moves from both sides. You can play d4, you can just castle, doesn't really make a difference. And yeah, from here you're going to have a comfortable position, and this is actually a bad move because it blocks the development of the bishop. So if you see that, just know that it's pretty good for you. Okay, so we got one more check that is very common. And here you could do the same thing as before, like this. But as I said, it's bad. So just go bishop to e2 again. And here from this square it's actually even better, because now after you develop the knight with a tempo again, so you develop two pieces with a tempo, two knights, the queen has to move, let's say d6, and now you're just simply going to castle and have a good position from here on as well. As you can see, you're going to play d4, and by no means is the Scandinavian defense bad, but the queen kind of gets chased around, and by the way, if the enemy queen ever goes here, you're simply going to develop the bishop and pin him. And wow, I'm surprised. How is the most played move on Lichess is knight to f3, which simply ignores that the queen is completely hanging over there. So yeah. What else is there? Let's check by the database. Queen d6. Okay, queen d6, you're just going to develop the knight as always, and after something like this, just play bishop to e2. It's the safe way. You can just attack it and just go like this, but at some point you're going to play bishop to e2 to interrupt this. Some opponents are just going to develop like this and wait until you developed your bishop to pin you, and that is going to be a little bit more annoying, because now after something like this, you're just simply going to lose this pawn, which is actually not winning in this position because I played the wrong moves out. This is going to be a completely winning tactic for you. But as I'm saying, you're just going to castle. Let's say they long castle, and I play rook to e1. They can actually take, and you win this, and you lose this pawn, and it's quite annoying. And yes, you could have lost the pawn earlier, but because they can take. But just for the instance that I'm showing you, you should go bishop to e2 as soon as you can. And yeah, let's cover the idea that instead of taking with the queen, they develop the knight. Okay, so here you're going to play the move d4. Okay, wait, well, I stack two pawns upon each other. What else are you going to do? Like, are you going to push the pawn and give it for free? No, you're going to develop, take, no, you're not going to develop. You're actually just going to take space in the center. And after they take, you're going to chase the knight away. As you can see, these two pawns are now controlling the center, this being the center of the board, and this pawn is fighting for the center of the board as well, and actually maintaining more space. So now, let's say they go back, you're just going to develop. And while this variation can be quite annoying, as I said, bishop to e2 saves the day, and after something like knight to c5, threatening to tell you that, well, you're overextending, my guy. Well, I don't really care. You could just go bishop back, you could just castle. It doesn't really matter because at this point, you've got a really good pawn clump over here. Now, there is another variation that they can play, right? Because they can go here, you play d4, and now they take with the queen. Well, taking with the queen is met by knight to f3, and usually you're going to see either queen to a5 or queen to d6 check. Okay, apparently people do go queen to d8, but queen to d6 is quite more annoying because now after you block, they simply can play something like knight to c6, and yeah, while they cannot really develop the bishop, it could end up more annoying. Okay, so queen to a5 is annoying as well, because usually you do want to develop the knight, but now after bishop to g4, you're going to have to play bishop to e2 again, because if you develop the bishop to any other square, you're simply going to be, the opponent is simply going to be very annoying, and you're going to be annoyed by the fact that this is pinned, and by the fact that your opponent is just simply going to overrun you on this side of the board. So after takes takes, at least you're just going to have this, and your queen is not going to go away from guarding this pawn. And yeah, these were the variations that I was trying to show you. And after this quick guide that you watched on YouTube, which is at exactly 12 minutes right now, you are going to be completely safe because now you know how to play against the Scandinavian defense. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and see you next time. Bye bye.